This is Duke University.
All right, everyone, thank you or welcome to our sustainability panel. We have four great entrepreneurs here joining us today, and our panel is going to be moderated by Dan Vermeer of Duke. So we have Mark Sad, Sean Wilson, Stephanie Poole Nieman, and Erin Emrich, and we'll kick it over to Dan to do more introductions.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Vermeer. I'm the director for the Center for Energy Development in the Global Environment here at Duke. We call it the EDGE Center, so some of you may have heard of the EDGE Center. This is sort of our bread and butter, looking at issues of sustainability and its intersections, especially with topics like entrepreneurship. So I was really excited to be included in this event and to be able to moderate a great panel of folks who are actually out there working on these issues. So I thought about this. The title of this was Sustainability in Entrepreneurship. So I was trying to sort of puzzle over what's the relationship between those terms. I think there's sort of two different dimensions of that. On one hand, you have that I think in every company, whether it's a startup company or not, the challenge of sustainability and the need to be entrepreneurial about finding ways of making the case for sustainability in the way that business operates. And so in some sense, there's an innovation or entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship in every firm. And there are challenges associated with that I think are critical for no matter what kind of business you go into, that you really begin to wrestle with those issues and build those capabilities. So I think that's some of what we'll talk about today. But the second sort of sense of the term is that sustainability offers a real entrepreneurial opportunity. And I think that's really what we have here in our panel today are people who are working with enterprises that see sustainability as a domain in which there are opportunities to build new businesses that deliver different kinds of products and services to the marketplace that have sustainability benefits and differentiate themselves on that basis. And so I think that second sense is really consistent with the sort of views of the panelists that we have here today. Rather than me doing an elaborate bio, I wanted to turn it over to each of them to let you know who they are, but also to tell a little bit about the business that they're in, some of the history there, and give you a bit more understanding of those enterprises. And we'll use that as a basis for questions going forward. At the end, we'll come back, and I'll look to you to see what sort of questions or comments you have about this as well. So we'll have some time for interaction at the end. So stay tuned. I'll turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves and their firms, and we'll get started. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Mark Saad, and I guess technically my title with Kinder Souls is the Chief Kinder Soul. Basically, what we did was we just launched a new footwear company in May called Kinder Souls, where we make eco-friendly flip-flops. That's why I'm the only person here probably wearing flip-flops. So basically, when we started out, we had an idea of creating a healthy flip-flop at first because we noticed that a lot of the typical flat flip-flops that you see on the market are really bad for your feet. So we teamed up with a podiatrist that helped us design a healthier footbed. And then what we realized is that we wanted to add an element of social responsibility to the company. So we kind of developed this idea of a donation rebate model where basically all of our customers are sent a rebate check if they're willing to donate old shoes to us that they don't wear anymore. So basically, we would take these old shoes and we would give them to people around the world that don't have footwear and have never had footwear. So what we realized after that is that there were a lot of environmental effects, because basically we were recycling old shoes and keeping them from ending up in landfills and things like that. So we kind of stumbled on becoming an eco-friendly company, and then when we got our material list from our producers, we realized that we could be using recycled material. So our new line that's coming out in 2011 actually has the midsoles made completely from recycled water bottles and things like that. So we kind of stumbled upon the environmental effect of sustainability, but we already had the for-profit side, and we also had the the social side. So that's basically our background. But like I said, we just launched in May, so it's brand new. And right now, all the preparation is being done for 2011, and that's where we are now. So.
I got the level got it. Yeah. Hey there, I'm Sean Wilson. I'm founder and what I call myself chief executive optimist of Full Steam Brewery. I kind of center what we do around optimism and having fun and enjoying the fact that it's beer that I do for a living. We are Durham-based. Been open since July, so we're also a new company. And our mission is to develop a distinctly Southern beer style using local farmed ingredients and Southern agricultural elements in the brewing process. We don't yet really know what that means, and that's a lot of fun. So it's sort of a little half crazy, half wishful thinking, and 0% practical right now. But that's the fun of being an entrepreneur, and it suits us very well. So we make beer like a sweet potato lager, where 1/3 of the fermentable base is North Carolina sweet potatoes that would otherwise, they can't be sold at market because they're blemished or irregular sized. We have a cream ale that's made with North Carolina corn grits, and then we do other more esoteric beers using odd foraged fruits like pawpaws and persimmons, and really trying to tell a Southern story, put a Southern spin on beer. Ultimately, our quest is to create a sustainable, year-round, fully scalable beer that's made with all Southern ingredients. And that's sort of who knows if that'll take us a year or 10 years or longer, but that's the ultimate quest. I'm a 2000 graduate of both the Fuqua School and of the Sanford Institute, an MPP MBA, and it's a thrill to be here. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Nieman, and I'm here today representing B-Lab. B-Lab is a nonprofit organization that certifies B corporations. B corporations are companies that are using the power of business to create social and environmental change. They are mission-driven companies at their heart, like the companies we just heard from, and B, the organization I work for, helps certify them. So we created a rating system which we evaluate companies' social and environmental practices, from their transparency standards to how they treat their workers to how they're creating a positive impact in the world through their products and through their own practices. So for it to become a B corporation, a company needs to score a minimum score on that assessment. And then the second piece is a little tricky. We actually ask B corporations to change their articles of incorporation. So certified B corporations are legally bound to consider all stakeholders in their decision making, which actually creates some more options for companies that want to maintain mission while they're growing, while they're taking in outside capital, and hopefully one day have a liquidity event. So there are over 300 current certified B corporations. B also is working on introducing a new legal form in 2 states this year. We now have the benefit corporation as a legal option, so that if you were creating a business today in Vermont or Maryland, you could choose to register it as a benefit corporation instead of a C Corp or an S Corp. And the third piece that I work on is we have been asked to create a rating system on social and environmental performance to drive capital towards mission-driven businesses. There is a growing industry called impact investing, which is interested in using capital to create positive outcomes, a little different than the traditional socially responsible investing movement. And so we are using the same assessment that we use for B to create a rating system that will is set up to be the S&P or Moody's of the impact investing space. So if you have questions about that, later we can go back to those. Happy to be here. I am a Keenan Flagler alum, a recent graduate, but I took classes here at the Sanford School, and my coworker is from Duke, so we have a little Duke blood in B.
Very cool. I'm Erin Emrich. I'm the managing director of Footprint Talent based in Atlanta, Decatur specifically, and we are a boutique executive search firm that has a vision of being the go-to portal for the top leaders in sustainability and in the space today for mid-market companies as well as blue chip sized companies. We do a little bit of nonprofit recruiting work as well, since sustainability exists in the not-for-profit world as well. We are about a year in business. I was a partner in another executive search firm in Atlanta for a number of years, and sort of became over the last few years the de facto sustainability practice leader, and decided with my partner's blessing to launch Footprint in the last year and a half. And so they've been gracious and let me go do my entrepreneurial thing. So we, as Footprint, are a little ragtag team of 5. We have a couple of recruiters, a corporate research manager, and a project manager who manages my ADD. Sorry. Tough crowd, wow. And we are in the midst of still growing, much like Sean said. The vision has evolved a bit since we first sort of put the concept together, but it's been an exciting year, and clearly sustainability is an exciting place to be rather in this time frame.
Great, thanks. And I hope you get a feel for, I think, a lot of diversity, some of the common themes. I think one of the common themes in all of the companies and the organizations that they talked about are, sort of managing these kind of dual priorities. On one hand, wanting to be a successful business. Even as a nonprofit, there are, I think, indicators of what business success looks like. At the same time, you have a kind of sustainability mission. And do you see those two different sort of values being synergistic for your company? Or are there trade-offs between them? Is it tough to keep those two things in balance? So let me just kind of open it up to you to talk about how do you sort of keep those two aspects, that sort of bifocal approach to your business at play, and do you see them running into each other, or do you see them really mutually supporting each other? I'll just turn it over to you. Anyone who wants to take that on?
To me, I think there's a lot of synergy between the two because, what I started to realize is that the only competitive advantages that Kinder Souls has over other flip-flops or footwear in the market are the social side and the environmentally friendly side. So you have to be careful, of course, because people will blame you for greenwashing and things like this. But I mean, the fact is, it gives people who might normally only be interested in the profit side of the 3 pillars to add an element of environmentally friendly products or anything else that they wouldn't normally do if they just want to create a profit. So, I mean, for us and for a lot of companies out there, it gives you something to differentiate yourself from the rest of the market. So.
Yeah, for us, it's totally different. I was thinking you'd say that because I see it as being so core to what separates you. But for us, our challenge is that beer, by its nature, isn't particularly sustainable. It's a water-intensive process. There's a lot of energy involved, and we sort of, frankly, put up with all of that because we like the end product, right? And so we haven't really emphasized too much our sustainable angle, or for 2 reasons, really. One, the intensity of it all, and 2, the fact that most base malts and hops, I mean, the core ingredients, come from outside of this immediate area. So what we've thrown out there is more of a quest. Like, we aim to be this, we look to do this, rather than we are this. And I cringe. I mean, I was at a restaurant the other day just checking in on our product. I know it's a tough job. But they said about our IPA, which is just a standard India Pale Ale. It's not one of the Southern style ones. And it says, this beer is made with North Carolina ingredients. And I cringe, and I'm like, no, it's, so I'm really cautious on the other side of things. I don't want to be called out for it. I don't want to, that authenticity is really important. And there's a risk that somebody who sees that, a competitor or media or something like that, will catch that. So it's my kind of responsibility to, 1, catch it on the forefront, and 2, kind of minimize our claims so that we're only saying things when we reach those levels. We're a long ways from that. But that, again, is part of the fun. That's the quest, and that's the process for us.
Absolutely, as a nonprofit, we have a business plan. Gears has a business plan that has accepted capital from Deloitte and Prudential, who see sustainability as a key business case going forward. The B Lab was founded by 3 entrepreneurs, 2 of which came after starting a company called And One, which was is a basketball apparel company. they founded in the 90s. And they used their lessons from trying to create a brand and a company that they thought was sustainable, that they would argue is sustainable. And so they talk about how it was easy to build in sustainability and to have an awesome workplace, to treat your employees really, really well when you're small, but how difficult it is to keep those factors in place when you grow, and especially when you take in outside capital, that the decision-making between the financial and the sustainability factors becomes a lot trickier at that point. And so that's one of the reasons why they founded B, is to give companies a better framework in which to make decisions. And absolutely, we think that that profitability is a key aspect of running a business, but there are also other considerations that should be considered going along the way.
And let me just intervene. Erin, can you talk a little bit about how you see the market for sustainability talent changing or evolving? It seems like it's a fast-moving area that maybe what people were looking for 5 years ago is not what they're looking for today. Can you talk a little bit about how you see that process evolving?
Sure. Entrepreneurs are nothing if we're not agile, right? So I mentioned that when I first sort of built the concept around Footprint Talent, I felt like we would be this sort of retained executive search firm that would hire only chief sustainability officers for companies that we partner with. And that has evolved a bit as we've gotten into our year. A lot of the chief sustainability officers that we work with are one-man or one-woman shops and are bootstrapping it and have a lot of work to do in their sort of respective organizations and need help. And so they've asked Footprint to, they've said very explicitly, Erin, who do you have on your bench that can come alongside us from a project perspective or on an interim basis to shepherd, an energy project, a water project, a sustainable design or materials project, but not on a permanent full-time basis. And so we've actually launched a project resources arm of Footprint that is not sort of the retained executive search flagship that I thought it would be, and that may well become our key way to serve our clients, both sitting CSOs as well as C-suite folks at the Cokes and Walmarts of the world that we work with. So I think that the need for it, to answer, I guess, your specific question, what we're seeing right now in terms of trends and demand for sustainability leaders at large are, on one hand, manager to senior level sustainability generalists who really are the face and also sort of the hands and feet of sustainability initiatives within any given organization, but at their heart, they're great communicators. And that sounds perhaps a little shallow, but I think communication is absolutely key when we're looking for and recruiting sustainability leaders. On the other hand, there is a huge demand, like I just mentioned, this project resources type product or service that we've launched for subject matter experts in sustainability who can do, frankly, the technical work around analysis and reporting and audit of sustainability reporting, and also life cycle assessments. And gosh, I mean, things that I, as frankly an English major from University of Georgia, thank you, am not really that well versed in or haven't been, and I'm sort of having to do some study up on it.
Excellent. I want to circle back. I think there's a number of questions around capability and talents needed that I want to sort of revisit later. But before we go there, I want to bring up this issue. I think both of you had some interesting perspectives on greenwashing and who your consumers are and how you communicate to those consumers. And you have sort of different approaches to that. I think, there's no business without consumers. So could you just tell us a little bit how you think about who your consumers are and how you think about how to communicate to them?
Well, one thing that I'll tell you is that the typical consumer for a green product or whatever you want to call it is going to be typically better educated than the average market. So to add to what he was saying, you do have to be very careful because they will call you out. For example, I was in the South Carolina Green Fair last weekend, and we had some flip-flops there, and we were talking, and a guy comes up and he says, "Hey, it's great that you guys are using recycled bottles for the next line, but what do you think about the hypoallergenic effects of it?" And I was just like, "Well, we haven't really looked into it." And what you start to realize is that the fact is you'll never get it completely green. You know, I mean, there will always be something that, you know, it's just not possible. It's just not out there. So there will be those people out there that will call you out on it. And, you know, we're continuing to try to make the product better. But that's really all that you can do, because once you do, you know, you're affecting something at a different end of the spectrum. So, you know, you have to be careful. You know, the thing that sells our flip-flops is that it's green and things like that. So it is a big part of our marketing, but at the same time, it's something that we're very genuine about too, and that we try to improve on every chance we get. So.
Yeah.
Our customers are right now hyper-local. We're only in this market from Hillsborough to Raleigh, and we have, I think there's sort of a phenomenon of a switch that's been flicked on for our customers, that if they know about us and like us, there's a lot of enthusiasm and excitement about what we're doing, and maybe some evangelism that comes to telling others, oh, this is really great local beer, they're doing something really novel and interesting. But it's so local. You know, once I start feeling proud about some of the movement in the marketplace, you know, the fact that Sam's Quick Shop sold out of our growlers, our returnable 64-ounce jugs in like a day after, and they were blown away by that. You know, I get really jazzed about that. And then I hear about a place at South Point Mall where we're 8th out of 8 in the taps there in terms of sales, because the South Point Mall customer doesn't get us. You know, it's so hyper-local right now. And I think the challenge will be, all right, how do we take the lessons learned from the food-oriented, urban, hipster-ish audience? We'd like to think that we're not demographic, that we, you know, and if you come to our tavern, you'll see a wide range of people, but it really does come down to, you know, kind of a core audience that gets us, like, you know, how do we capture what they've been able to do and model that or extend that to people who might buy, you know, Sam Adams if it's on sale at Harris Teeter, or, you know, Michelob Ultra, or, you know, wine for that matter. We've got a lot of work ahead to look at how that extends to reach beyond this initial group of evangelists that are invaluable, but what next?
Yeah. So Stephanie and Erin, you're both also in business serving customers, but different kind of customers than I think these guys who are selling products that have certain kind of sustainability credentials. How do you think about your customers, and how do you communicate to them about this kind of stuff? I guess in both of your cases, it's businesses themselves that are the primary audience.
Sure. We need to always articulate our value proposition to companies. Some of the benefits of being a B Corporation are later term. We hope to one day have a more widely accepted corporate form, and the benefits that could come along with that, like procurement benefits, other tax or other related incentives. Those are a long way off. We only have one tax incentive right now in the city of Philadelphia. So aside from those 25 companies, it's hard for us to provide immediate value. So we've worked to create services and to find partners to create today's benefit. We have a partnership with Salesforce.com, which B Corps can save about 75% off of that software. So we've tried to create immediate value for companies. And then we are already thinking about gears in which our client is going to be investors in the investment community, and how we can serve that community. And it's always at the forefront of every conversation is what value do you provide, and it's not just a greenwashing statement value, it's what kind of business value do you provide to my company today.
In full transparency, we are actually, we've applied to be a B Corp. I don't know if you know.
I didn't know that.
So hopefully by the end of the year, we will have sort of achieved that. And so it's very important to us to be that, but really more from sort of an internal perspective, and not necessarily sort of a brand strategy or an external strategy. It is sort of who we are. Sorry, so it's important. But externally, we work with organizations who, in many cases, are old school, hyper conservative, and don't. If you say green, you know, they go, oh, tree hugging liberal. You know, we have to be really, really careful with the business case that we make to companies like Chick-fil-A and Haverty's in Atlanta specifically. So we have to sort of lead with business case for sustainability, and not because it's the right thing to do, even though we believe that, you know, wholeheartedly. So greenwashing for us, being a services organization, really comes, I think, into play around credibility and authenticity, which you guys have talked about a lot. I think it's really key. And when we don't know the answer, I think it's really important for us to just sort of say it and not BS around it, because it's such a new space. There's no way that anyone can have all of the answers. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, just to sort of build on that, we don't have a representative here, but I really am fascinated by what Patagonia has been doing in the area of transparency. Some of you might know about their Footprint Chronicles, which is sort of a sub-site on their website. And they have listed several of the products that they sell along the top bar. You can click on the jacket that you just bought or the T-shirt, and it'll pop up the whole supply chain of that product. It'll show where the raw materials came from. It'll show where it got sewn together, got put on a boat and brought to the markets. And then along the bottom, it has the good, the bad, and what do you think? So the good is all the things they've done to really advance sustainability about their product. The bad are those kind of knotty things that they haven't figured out how to solve yet. You mentioned the hypoallergenic quality of plastic and how you're dealing with that. Those are the kinds of things that they've listed. You know, this is a big problem. The water resistance that they put on the jackets has got some really negative environmental qualities, and they don't know how to solve that. So what they've done is made it transparent and tried to crowdsource innovation, saying, look, we trust you guys, and you trust us to do the right thing, and we're trying to do the right thing, but we haven't got it all figured out. If you have a solution to how we can have the same kind of quality of products without having the negative side effects, help us out here. And not every company can do that, but I think it's a really interesting and gutsy choice. And Patagonia is not like Coca-Cola or other companies that don't have the same kind of reputation or the same customer base. But I think that effort to kind of put this stuff out there and say, we haven't got it right 100%. It's a process we're working. We're trying to figure it out as we go. I think is really powerful. So I encourage you all to take a look at that. I guess just to build on that, I'd like to bring up the issue of measures. This stuff is really prone to greenwashing if it doesn't have any measurements associated. We believe in and we're committed to, and we're really green, and we have the right image. That stuff is really thin. This really boils down to, how do you measure this stuff? How do you know that you're on the right track? And I know all you guys are in enterprises that are relatively new. I think B Corp might be a little bit different in that you're actually in the certification business building these measures. But maybe you can talk a little bit about how do you think about what it'll take to actually be able to quantify and convince people that you're on the right trail with this. And it doesn't have to be quantitative, but how do you begin to think about how do you ground some of the claims that you'd like to make, or what are some of the limits on those claims that you really can't make because you think it'll be really tough to measure? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The best example for what we do is the stockpile of donated shoes that we've got. So we've got our warehouse in Gardner, North Carolina, and we hit. It was probably about 2 weeks ago. We hit like the 1,000th, shoe donated to Kinder Souls, and we're just now setting up to send out our first batch for them to be donated around the world, and we work in conjunction with Souls for Souls, a nonprofit out of Nashville. So that's the easiest thing for us to measure, and again, to me, sustainability, of course, has to do with financial sustainability, but we're not the kind of company that wants to say, oh, we sold this many or we've made this much revenue, because that's not what our customer base is interested in. So, that's one potential measure, and trying to figure out, and this is something that's kind of on our to-do list, but trying to figure out what the environmental impact is from saving one pair of shoe, or, at least keeping it out of a landfill for a little bit longer. And Souls for Souls has done some of that kind of stuff too, but really putting it into something that resonates with the client base is something that we want to do. So, but that's one measure.
For us, I kind of led in with the quantified fermentable base. I mean, beer is a fermentable product, right? And so, when we say we use 33% of our fermentable base is North Carolina sweet potatoes. it's especially when you come on site and see the bags and bags of product of pureed sweet potato. That's part of our story. Is just using those metrics to say, hey, we're backing out, and instead of using malt from the Great Northern Plains or Europe, we're using X% of these local ingredients. So that's the quantified side. And then two, for some of the more, again, the esoteric things like pawpaws and persimmons and rhubarb and things that we use locally, we just use stories, not unlike Whole Foods or Weaver Street Market would showcase if you go into their store, the pictures of the local farmer. We need to do more of that on our website as we go from concept to actual product and start building on those stories. But I've been using social media, Twitter and Facebook and blogging to kind of document and showcase the specific farmers that we're supporting and the trees that we're shaking to get fruit and really kind of making the story come alive by storytelling essentially. So it's quantified through some of the numerics and then a lot of storytelling.
So metrics for us are the key to our business. I work, actually my role is officially on the standards team at B, which is something that I never would have thought that would be where my career took me. But it's interesting to see where standards align with, especially with gears with the investment community. A lot of investors are not satisfied now with just knowing the percent return on their capital. They want to know, okay, I'm returning X% and I have offset how many pounds of carbon. They want to know other factors. And so we are focused as an industry at helping the sustainability community and the social enterprise community create common metrics. We use IRIS metrics whenever possible, which is an industry adopted standard. We take everything really seriously, and we don't introduce metrics that we can't verify or that we haven't asked other stakeholders and other industry experts about. So to us, that's incredibly important.
And Erin, I guess just to sort of build on that, your perspective, you mentioned a little bit about the growing need for people who can do life cycle assessment and kind of the basic technical skills. A lot of that has to do with measurement. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, in light of what our clients need or
yeah.
our particulars. Yeah, I think that, let's see, let me think how I want to answer that. There is a growing need for sort of technical folks around sustainability, and so I think it will be more and more important for folks who have backgrounds in what I would consider sort of more linear functions, finance, IT, et cetera. I guess I'd say be encouraged because you have absolutely a place in sustainability, and perhaps you hopefully know that already, but we need folks who really can sort of do the groundwork, the foundational work around sustainability initiatives in organizations. It's not just the marketing folks, it's not just the branding and sort of PR folks, and it's becoming less so even. I think sort of the more external facing functions, i.e. marketing, are actually becoming less important around sustainability for reasons that we're talking about in terms of greenwashing. And they're suspect almost in some cases.
Interesting. Do you think the market for sustainability broadly construed, and I know each of you are in different markets, but do you think it's growing? Do you think it will grow? There's been, some analysis here that say it's something like, 10% of consumers out there are willing to pay a premium for green products, and that has been kind of stuck for the last 20 years. Do you think this is an area that's going to grow? Is that a presumption of your business, or do you think it is going to be a niche consumer that you can still build a good business around, but may not ever make it into sort of the general population? Do you see trends along those lines, whether it's niche or it's mainstreaming?
I think it's going to continue to grow, and one of the reasons why I think this is going to happen is because you see a lot of the bigger organizations, namely Walmart, that is starting to move towards sustainability a lot more, and of course they have a much larger outreach than any other retailer in the world. So I had somebody ask me, at the Green Fair again this weekend, if Walmart wanted to order 10 million pairs of your flip-flops, would you sell them to them? And I was like, yeah, I would. And and he said, well, you don't think that's selling out? And I was like, no, because, you're obviously here at the Green Fair. You have a desire, to buy products that are environmentally friendly, right? He said, yeah. So I said, well, why not be in the retailer that's going to reach the most people that, typically aren't part of our niche market? People, I don't know if it's politically correct, but maybe with a lower income or anything like that. So, what would be wrong with that, And so he was like, well, you make a good point, and I think that's what it is. I think that, as, it used to be people with, like I said earlier, higher educated, higher income that were more interested in sustainable products. But I think that you're going to start to see it become more mainstream across the board. So that's kind of my logic behind saying that it'll grow.
Other opinions?
Is I don't know a good enough answer?
Sure.
For me, I don't, specific to beer, I don't know. There's a sort of a unspoken battle in the beer world about what's more important. Sustainability arguments first, the case for sustainability or the case for local. If you think about, when you go out to the grocery store, to the bar or restaurant, there are 40 North Carolina breweries and brew pubs, and a number of them distribute their product beyond their own on-site, restaurant. What's more important to you? Supporting them, supporting the local economy, or supporting a brewery like New Belgium in Colorado that makes claims of being, sustainable, wind-powered, green, all the right things. And yet, I see their wholesaler trucks, shipping around and big 18-wheelers, and you got to think about the the pure distance of it all. Now, they've done a very good job, and I don't know how, maybe this is something that's like a part of business school curriculum or whatever, you've seen it, but New Belgium was on the forefront of this, recognizing that they could be called out for it, getting back to that authenticity thing. So they did a study on CFC and emissions on their product, and found, maybe not surprisingly, given that it was their study, that the bulk of the greenhouse emissions were at the retail level in the storefronts when they're sliding open and close the refrigerated coolers. That it's not really the transport of cases of beer across the U.S., which does help them make the case for being a national brewery. But it's just kind of what you value more. Our position is more on the, I can't get into a blank contest about what's better, local or sustainable, because it's just not, it's not who we are. But our angle on being a distinctly southern brewery and servicing the what we hope will be the southern states, I think we'll keep that authenticity and limit the claims of being too broad and undermining our sustainability.
Yeah. I think you make a really interesting point that there's a lot of different sort of values that are clustered around this space. There's sort of the environmental sustainability. You talked about social responsibility and kind of an international view on that. There's a connection to the local, which has various benefits, and that those things are kind of all in the stew in this conversation, and people sort of are putting different things at the front of that, and then what the others that sort of fall secondary in that. We're getting close to the end of the session, but I did want to turn it over to all of you. All of you are interested in entrepreneurial ventures, and if you have questions or comments for some of the folks who are actually pursuing this line, I'd love to hear them. And you can either address the questions generally to the panel or to specific panelists, whichever you'd like. Are there questions or comments that anyone would like to share? Yes?
You mentioned about like the 10% of consumers may be interested in this type of greener product, but are you kind of doing anything within your companies to kind of go beyond that 10%, or are you kind of just hoping that more people realize the significance of going green?
Well, for us, it's not just that it's a green product. there are people out there that care about the social side of the company. And then I only mentioned it for a second at the beginning, but, our flip-flops are healthier for you. We worked with a podiatrist that designed, a better arch support and a heel cup and all these things that you don't typically see in flip-flops. So we've got kind of 3 different angles that we hit 3 different markets with. So that's what we've done to just get outside of that. And, if one's low, we thought launching the company that the social angle would be the most effective, but we're finding that the health angle is becoming the most effective because people are very satisfied with the support that the flip-flops give you, and they're telling other people about it. And we even have a drop-down menu on our website when people buy, and they can select which of those 3 angles, motivated them to buy. And the health one was I think it was like 41%. So, that's kind of what we've done to get outside of that. And one thing I wanted to mention based on what you were just saying is that, you mentioned, the environmental sustainability and, of course, the social angle that's incorporated with it, too. But, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. To me, it's financial sustainability as well because we are not a nonprofit. We don't go off grants or donations or anything like that. So that's kind of what makes it an issue, or not an issue, but a challenge. So that, I hope I answered your question, but I just wanted to add that on to what you were saying, too.
Sure.
I'll just say, too, and again, I know you're talking probably more about consumer products, but for us in a professional services environment, we do go to, again, Cokes, Walmarts of the world who have established offices of sustainability. They are a key target for us and, frankly, bread and butter. But our real passion is coming alongside really more mid-market sized organizations who have sustainability or corporate sustainability as a bullet on an agenda somewhere, and coming alongside them and educating and providing content and sort of shepherding that process of thinking through what sustainability looks like for the organization. What does the profile of this sort of leader look like? Where do they need to report in based on their business model? So I think we spend as much time on that side, just in the education, sustainability 101 process, as we do on more established relationships in companies.
Yes.
Stephanie, this question for you. You talked about how you'll have to deal with some companies who aren't so big on sustainability as an idea, as like a moral obligation. Is the profitability of sustainability usually great enough to convince them? Or are there many cases in which it's not enough?
Is that for you? Or
I think it was for
is
you.
that for me or Steph? I'm sorry. It's okay. No. Because that's a good question for you, too. I think that's a lot of your case. I would say yes. And there are a number of organizations, smaller companies, probably around 250 to 750 million in revenue, that we've had to take that angle and say, okay, if we address just energy or just lighting in your supply chain or in your distribution sort of chain, rather, then we can fund both this person that will come and sort of be the hands and feet of sustainability. It's probably only happened about 3 times because the companies we work with typically have some commitment or some interest already, and so we're not having to really go so tactical. But if it comes down to it and we need to find a way to figure out how to further the effort or the desire to be a more sustainable operating practice, we will do that. And there are ways to do it around sort of very granular, sometimes energy, sometimes other, we can address water sometimes. Mm-hmm. Packaging is absolutely a way, but it's a little further down the supply chain, and so it's not as much of a direct hit. I don't know if that answers your question. Okay.
Stephanie, anything to add to that, or?
I think she did a good job.
Okay. I guess I would say a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I was given advice very early when I started working on sustainability issues, and trying to make a case. I was going through a presentation that we were going to do to the C-suite about this, and I had my manager pull me to the side and said, Dan, this is the one thing, if you remember nothing else, said, people in the C-suite, they hear 2 things. They hear fear and they hear greed. And if you aren't speaking to either of those, you're not being heard. So you really need to go through your argument for why you're doing this and really make the case. Is this a case that you can put the business in a better place? It might be profitability. It might be differentiation in the marketplace. It might be launching a new sort of dimension, you know, in the industry that didn't exist before. There's a lot of, it's not always direct bottom line benefits, but certainly that's there. The other side is risk. I think a lot of times sustainability is defensive as much as it is offensive, which is that, you know, if you don't know these issues, you are going to get blindsided by increased costs. You might not be able to get access to the resources that you need. You might have somebody protesting in front of your plants if you're doing the wrong thing on this. So I think that was, you know, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, the fear or greed, but that basically sort of boils it down. There's a lot of different sort of pluses and there's a lot of different kind of minuses. And making a business case is assembling the relevant and compelling pluses and minuses that really would make this the right course of action. So it can be more complex, but it sort of boils down to you're making one of those two cases. Yes?
Florida grad would like to ask a Georgia grad. So you're a small business, but you're talking to big companies. I mean, nothing gets bigger than Walmart or Coca-Cola, but how does a small business get their foot in the door for the students in the room that sales is obviously a crucial part of your business? So how does a small business get into the big fish?
That's a great question. I came out of sales prior to my life in sort of the executive search and recruiting world, so I personally like to pick up the phone and just sort of introduce myself, and a lot of it is just persistence, frankly, and reaching out and having some cojones and saying, hi, this is who we are, and I mean, I have this struggle sort of internally almost every day. Okay, I can either pick up the phone and introduce what Footprint does to, you know, head of sustainability at X, Y, and Z, Duke Energy yesterday in Charlotte before my iPhone issue. And they can either say no thank you, or they can say, wow, that's interesting, you must be sort of an early mover in what you're doing, we'd like to talk with you. And more often than not, I'm grateful to say that the latter has happened. And so this year has been nothing if not incredible conversations with people and their personal stories around why they came to sort of the sustainability world and space and how they came to their current roles. So I would say persistence, and did I say, yeah, guts, probably a little bit. And I'm not saying I am, but all of these people up here are incredibly sort of, I don't know, brave is probably the word.
Great. I think we've opened up a lot of really interesting issues and just scratched the surface on them. We have a really diverse and interesting panel, and I'd like to thank them for their contributions today and everything that they've shared with us. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And as a token of our gratitude for you all, we have signed copies of Dan Ariely's best-selling book, Predictably Irrational. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
We have coming up at 12:15 our closing keynote, so please stick around for that, and we'll start that at 12:15.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.